The Meridian Empire's flagship, Eternal Ascendancy, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of unexplored territory, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in patterns that had struck fear into 1,000 civilizations. Grand Admiral Xerath stood at the command center, his iridescent scales shifting through shades of deep purple as he studied the sensor readings before him. After 8 centuries of military service, very little surprised him anymore. These readings, however, made his secondary heart skip a beat. "Impossible," he whispered, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Run the analysis again." His second-in-command, Commander Vex, moved with fluid grace across the biological-mechanical interface that served as the bridge. "The readings are consistent, Admiral. We're detecting thousands of artificial structures, but they're—" She hesitated, searching for the right word. Primitive. The space before them was vast and seemingly empty to the naked eye, but their advanced sensors painted a different picture. Scattered throughout the sector were what appeared to be early-stage space stations, rudimentary satellites, and vessels powered by chemical propulsion. The technology level suggested a civilization barely beyond their first steps into space. Preliminary analysis suggests their technological development is approximately equivalent to Stage 2 civilization, Vex continued. They haven't even mastered basic quantum mechanics. Xerath's scales rippled with amusement. The Meridian Empire had long since categorized the developmental stages of intelligent life. Stage 2 civilizations were considered little more than children playing with toys. They had yet to understand the fundamental principles that govern the universe, still bound by primitive theories of physics and limited by their biological forms. "Deploy the reconnaissance drones," Xerath commanded. "Standard first contact protocols." The drones, sleek crystalline constructs infused with semi-organic computing matrices, streamed from the flagship's launch bays. They moved with perfect precision, their quantum sensors designed to map every aspect of a civilization's technological and biological development. The first drone disappeared. Not exploded, not destroyed. It simply ceased to exist. Before Xerath could process this anomaly, the second and third drones vanished just as abruptly. His scales shifted to a deep crimson of alarm. Full defensive formation. All ships raise quantum barriers. The Meridian battle fleet, 50 ships strong, moved into a defensive sphere around the flagship. Each vessel was a masterpiece of biocrystal engineering, capable of reshaping itself to adapt to any threat. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, uplifted dozens of species, and never once met defeat. A voice echoed through their command network, speaking perfect High Meridian with an unsettling casualness. "Your barriers are quite impressive. The crystalline lattice structure, the quantum-entangled defensive matrices. Beautiful work, really. Mind if we take a closer look?" Every screen, every neural interface, every quantum-linked display across the fleet suddenly filled with diagrams, complete technical readouts of their own defensive systems, including classifications that were supposed to be impossible to detect. "Who are you?" Xerath demanded, his voice carrying the weight of imperial authority that had cowed countless species before. A laugh echoed through the command center, warm, genuine, and thoroughly unnerving. "Oh, right. Introductions. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, representing the human collective. You're currently in what we call the nursery, a section of space we use to study emerging civilizations. Those primitive structures you detected. They're museum pieces. We keep them around to observe how different species react to seemingly less advanced civilizations." Xerath's mind raced. This had to be some sort of deception. No Stage 2 civilization could possibly possess this level of technological control. "Your primitive vessels are exactly as advanced as we want them to appear," Dr. Chen interrupted. "You're currently surrounded by what you might call quantum ghosts. Echoes of humanity's past that we maintain as reminders of where we came from. The real question is, why did you think it was appropriate to send military drones into another civilization's territory without permission?" The Admiral's scales shifted through patterns of confusion and defensive pride. The Meridian Empire brings order and advancement to lesser species. We, lesser species. There was no anger in Dr. Chen's voice, only what seemed like gentle amusement. Admiral Xerath, your empire hasn't even begun to grasp the fundamental nature of consciousness. You're still trapped in biological forms. Thinking quantum mechanics is the height of scientific achievement. We transcended those limitations millennia ago. As if to demonstrate her point, the space around the Meridian fleet began to change. The seemingly empty void filled with patterns of light and energy that hurt Xerath's eyes to observe. The primitive stations and vessels they detected earlier shimmered and transformed, revealing their true nature. Vast networks of quantum consciousness woven into the fabric of space-time itself. "Welcome," Dr. Chen said warmly, "to humanity's domain. Those drones we disappeared. They're fine. We've simply moved them to one of our research centers. We'd be happy to return them, along with some suggestions for improving their efficiency by about 300%. We find that sharing knowledge is far more productive than conquest." Xerath stood motionless, his mighty fleet suddenly feeling very small and vulnerable. Everything he believed about his empire's superiority, everything he'd been taught about the natural order of civilization's progress, was being systematically dismantled by a species that, by all outward appearances, should have been beneath his notice. "Now then," Dr. Chen continued, her voice taking on a tone of genuine enthusiasm, "would you like to learn how we actually manipulate quantum states? Your current methods are interesting, but there's so much more you could do with them. We'd be happy to show you. Assuming, of course, you're willing to abandon this whole conquest business and engage in proper diplomatic relations." As Xerath struggled to formulate a response, he realized with growing clarity that he was experiencing exactly what countless lesser species had felt upon encountering the Meridian Empire: the humbling, terrifying, and exhilarating recognition that the universe was far vaster and more wondrous than they had imagined. The difference was, humanity seemed more interested in sharing that wonder than conquering it. The crystalline walls of the Eternal Ascendancy's conference chamber pulsed with uneasy patterns as Grand Admiral Xerath faced his assembled command staff. Their scales shifted through shades of anxiety and disbelief as they processed the situation. 20 hours had passed since their encounter with humanity, and each hour had brought new revelations that challenged the very foundations of Meridian understanding. "Show them," Xerath commanded, his own scales a troubled mix of azure and violet. Commander Vex activated the quantum display, filling the chamber with a three-dimensional representation of what their sensors had recorded. The seemingly empty space around their fleet was anything but vacant. Layers upon layers of quantum structures existed in dimensions their scientists had never even theorized about. "This," Vex indicated, her voice trembling slightly, "is what we initially perceived." The display showed the primitive stations and vessels they'd first detected. "And this," she continued, adding layer after layer of impossible complexity, "is what actually exists." The human presence wasn't merely a network of ships and stations. It was a vast, living tapestry woven into the fabric of reality itself. What they had mistaken for primitive technology was merely the surface layer of something so advanced it bordered on the mythical. "Dear guests," Dr. Chen's voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere at once, "I hope you don't mind me joining your meeting. Your quantum encryption is fascinating, by the way, elegantly designed, but it does have a few interesting vulnerabilities." Xerath's mandibles clicked in resignation. "You might as well materialize, Doctor. We're beginning to understand that our concepts of security are somewhat outdated." A shimmer of light coalesced into a human form, but not in the way the Meridians expected. Instead of a solid hologram, Dr. Chen appeared as a shifting pattern of quantum states, simultaneously particle and wave, physical and digital. "Much better," she smiled, her form rippling like sunlight on water. "Now we can have a proper conversation about what happens next." One of Xerath's senior scientists, Director Keela, moved forward, her scales showing patterns of intense curiosity. Your form. You exist in multiple states simultaneously. How is this possible? Ah. Chen's expression brightened. That's actually a fascinating story. You see, humanity didn't exactly transcend our biological forms in the way most species do. We didn't upload our consciousness into machines, nor did we modify our bodies with technology. Instead, we learned to exist as information itself. She gestured, and the quantum display transformed, showing Earth's history. When we first developed quantum computing, we made the same assumptions most species do, that it was simply a faster, more efficient way to process information. But then we discovered something extraordinary. Consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon. The display showed complex mathematical equations that made the Meridian scientists' eyes hurt. We realized that what we think of as self, consciousness, awareness, identity, exists in a quantum state naturally. Our biological brains were actually limiting this state, forcing it into classical patterns. When we learned to let go of these limitations, her form shifted, briefly showing countless variations of herself across multiple probability states. We became what we truly were all along, beings of pure quantum information, able to exist across multiple states and dimensions simultaneously. Edzareth watched as his scientists frantically tried to record and understand what they were seeing. But the primitive technology we detected. Yes, Chen chuckled. Think of those as our childhood photos. We keep them around partly out of nostalgia, but mostly as a test. How an advanced civilization reacts to apparently primitive technology tells us a lot about their true nature. Your immediate move to send military drones was concerning. The Admiral's scales flushed with embarrassment. The Meridian Empire has always believed in guiding lesser. There's that phrase again, Chen interrupted gently. Lesser species. You might want to reconsider that terminology. The universe has a way of surprising you. For instance, she waved her hand, and suddenly every Meridian in the room felt a strange sensation in their neural implants. We've just upgraded your quantum processing capabilities by about 400%, she explained. Nothing invasive. We simply show your technology how to operate more efficiently. Consider it a small demonstration of what cooperation might look like. The Meridians stared in shock as their neural interfaces expanded with new capabilities, displaying information in ways they had never imagined possible. Their supposedly advanced technology had been operating at a fraction of its potential, limited by their own assumptions about what was possible. The real question, Chen continued, her form stabilizing into something more conventionally human-shaped, is whether the Meridian Empire is ready to accept that they're not the most advanced civilization in this sector of space. More importantly, are you ready to learn? Edzareth felt the weight of 8 centuries of military service, of absolute certainty and Meridian superiority, pressing down on him. But beneath that weight was something he hadn't felt in centuries. Wonder. What exactly are you offering? He asked carefully. Chen's smile widened. Everything. We're offering you everything. Knowledge, understanding, evolution itself. But first, you need to understand what you've actually stumbled into. You think this is your first contact with humanity. She paused, her form flickering with amusement. We've been watching your empire for centuries. Those quantum crystals you're so proud of. Look closer at their basic structure. You might find something familiar. As the Meridians began to realize the true implications of her words, the very foundations of their empire's history began to shift beneath their feet. The quantum crystals throughout the Meridian fleet pulsed with unfamiliar patterns as their enhanced capabilities began to manifest. In the Eternal Ascendancy's primary research lab, Director Kayla watched in fascination as centuries of Meridian assumptions about their own technology crumbled before her eyes. The base structure, she whispered, her scales shifting through shades of wonder and disbelief. It's been there all along. The quantum crystalline matrices we thought we developed, they're based on human principles. Dr. Chen's quantum form hovered nearby, observing with what seemed like patient amusement. We call it technological inheritance. Think of it as leaving breadcrumbs for emerging civilizations to follow. The real question is, how do you think your crystals learn to grow in quantum-coherent patterns? The implications hit Kyla like a gravitational wave. Our crystals, they're alive. In a manner of speaking, Chen confirmed. They're quantum aware. Every crystal in your fleet is part of a larger consciousness network. We've simply awakened what was already there. Grand Admiral Xerath entered the lab, his scales now showing complex patterns that the human quantum sensors interpreted as existential uncertainty. The mighty Meridian Empire, he was beginning to understand, had been dancing to music they couldn't even hear. How many? He asked simply. How many civilizations have you guided this way? Chen's form shifted, briefly displaying what looked like a map of the galaxy, with countless points of light representing different species and civilizations. All of them, in one way or another. Humanity's role isn't to conquer or control, it's to nurture. We're gardeners, not governors. The lab's quantum displays suddenly filled with images of different species, different civilizations, each following their own path to advancement. Every species has the potential for quantum awakening, Chen explained. The path there isn't linear. Some, like us, achieve it through technology. Others find it through biological evolution, or through spiritual enlightenment, or through ways we still don't fully understand. And the Meridian Empire? Kyla asked, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. What path did you intend for us? Chen's form rippled with something that might have been approval. Your species has a unique gift, the ability to grow and shape quantum-coherent crystals through biological processes. We've been particularly interested in how this might lead to a new form of consciousness integration. The lab's crystals pulsed in harmony with her words, and every meridian present felt a strange resonance in their neural implants. It was as if they were hearing the first notes of a symphony they'd never known existed. The genetic modifications your species made to yourselves centuries ago, Chen continued, the ones that gave you your neural interfaces and crystalline integration. Did you never wonder why those particular mutations were so successful? Why they worked so perfectly with the quantum crystals you later discovered? Xerath's scales shifted to deep indigo, the color of profound realization. You've been guiding our evolution. Guiding, yes. Controlling, no. Chen's form expanded, showing them glimpses of their own evolutionary history. We simply created conditions that would allow your natural potential to emerge. The choices were always yours. A new presence made itself known in the lab. Another human quantum consciousness, this one identifying itself as Dr. Marcus Rivera. His form appeared more abstract than Chen's, existing as patterns of probability, rather than anything humanoid. We're approaching a nexus point, Rivera announced, his voice resonating directly in their quantum matrices. The awakening cascade has begun. The Meridians felt it then, their neural implants, the quantum crystals, their own evolved biology, all beginning to synchronize in ways they had never imagined possible. The boundary between organic and crystalline, between conscious and computational, began to blur. What's happening to us? Kyla asked, watching as quantum patterns danced across her scales. Nothing that wasn't already possible, Chen assured them. Your species has been on the verge of this transformation for centuries. We're simply allowing you to see what you've always been capable of. Through their enhanced perception, the Meridians began to understand. Their mighty empire, their technological achievements, their very evolution, all of it had been leading to this moment. They weren't being conquered or controlled. They were being awakened. Xerath stood in the center of the lab, watching as his crew experienced the first stages of what could only be described as transcendence. The quantum crystals that powered their civilization weren't tools. They were partners in an evolutionary dance that humanity had choreographed eons ago. Why show us this now? He asked, his voice carrying both wonder and wariness. Why reveal your presence after all this time? Chen and Rivera's forms merged briefly, creating a display of such quantum complexity that even the enhanced meridian perceptions could barely process it. Because, they said in unison, "You're not the only ones about to wake up." And what comes next will require all of us to be fully aware. The images they shared then, of what lurked in the spaces between galaxies, of why humanity had spent eons preparing countless species for awakening, made every meridian present understand that their journey into humanity's domain had only been the beginning. The eternal ascendancy's bridge had transformed. What was once a rigid command center of crystalline interfaces had become a flowing space of pure quantum interaction. The Meridian crew moved through their duties with newfound awareness, their consciousness extending through the quantum matrices that had always been part of their technology, but never fully awakened. Admiral Xerath stood at the center of this transformation, his scales now displaying patterns of quantum interference that mirrored the space around him. Through his enhanced perception, he could sense the vast network of human consciousness that permeated this sector of space. And beyond it, something else, something vast and dark and patient. Now you can see it. Dr. Chen's quantum form materialized beside him, her presence resonating with the ship's crystals. The reason for all of this, why we've spent millennia preparing species across the galaxy. The quantum displays showed it clearly now. Massive void spaces between the galaxies, areas that should have been empty but instead pulsed with an alien intelligence so foreign it defied comprehension. The Meridians had always seen space as a canvas for their empire's expansion. Now they understood it was a battlefield, and they had been unknowingly training for a war they never knew existed. We call them the Void Collective. Dr. Rivera's consciousness merged with the ship's systems, sharing data that would have been incomprehensible to their unawakened minds just days ago. They exist in dimensions beyond conventional space-time. They don't seek to destroy or conquer. They simply consume, convert, transform everything into their own pattern of existence. How long? Xerath asked, watching as the displays showed the slow but inexorable approach of these entities. They'd been coming since before humanity achieved quantum consciousness, Chen explained. We realized early on that no single species, no single approach to existence, could hope to resist them. The only chance was diversity, multiple species achieving quantum awakening in their own unique ways. Director Keela, her form now more energy than matter, interfaced directly with the ship's quantum core. The crystalline evolution of our species, the biological quantum processors we developed. You guided us toward this specific form of consciousness to serve a greater purpose. Yes, Chen confirmed. The Meridians have a unique capability. Your crystalline technology can maintain quantum coherence in ways that even humanity struggled to achieve. Every species we've guided has developed their own strengths, their own contributions to what must become a unified defense. Through the quantum network, Xerath could sense other civilizations awakening across the galaxy. Species the Meridian Empire had dismissed as primitive or irrelevant were revealing capabilities and forms of consciousness that defied their previous understanding. Your empire's tendency to seek out and uplift other species, Rivera noted, wasn't entirely your own initiative. We needed a civilization that would actively connect with others, even if initially through conquest. Those connections have laid the groundwork for what comes next. The quantum displays shifted, showing the true extent of humanity's preparation. Countless species, each approaching quantum consciousness in their own way, each developing unique capabilities and perspectives. The Meridian's crystalline technology, another species' biological quantum computing, the third's mastery of dimensional folding, all pieces of a vast defense that humanity had spent eons orchestrating. You've been conducting an experiment in guided evolution across the entire galaxy, Kyla realized, her scientific mind grasping the scale of it. Every species, every civilization. Not an experiment, Chen corrected gently. A preparation. The Void Collective operates by enforcing uniformity, converting all existence to their pattern. Our strength must lie in diversity, in the combination of different approaches to consciousness and existence. Hexareth watched as his fleet, now fully awakened to their quantum nature, began to transform. The crystalline ships were becoming something new, not just vessels of war, but nodes in a vast network of conscious resistance. "The Meridian Empire stands ready," he declared, then paused as new understanding flowed through him. "No, not an empire anymore. We can't afford the luxury of artificial hierarchies, not with what's coming." "Now you understand." Chen's form resonated with approval. This was never about conquest or dominion. It's about survival, not just of individual species, but of diversity itself, of the right of consciousness to develop in its own unique ways. Through the quantum network, Hexareth could sense the approach of other awakened species, former enemies, potential allies, all now faced with the same choice. The Void Collective's presence grew stronger at the edges of their perception, their alien patterns threatening to unravel the very fabric of space they knew. "How long do we have?" he asked, watching as his fleet instinctively began to reconfigure into formations they had never trained for, but somehow now understood. Chen's form shifted, displaying time scales that made even their enhanced minds struggle to comprehend. "They're already here. They always have been. The question isn't when they'll arrive. It's whether we'll be ready when they finally decide to wake up." The implications of her words rippled through the quantum network, and every awakened species felt the weight of the choice before them. Unity or extinction. Diversity or dissolution. The real war wasn't for territory or resources. It was for the right of consciousness itself to exist in all its varied forms. And the Meridians, former conquerors now turned defenders, would play a crucial role in what was to come. The quantum fabric of space rippled with activity as thousands of civilizations synchronized their consciousness across the galaxy. The Meridian fleet, once a symbol of imperial might, now served as a crystalline nexus point in humanity's vast defense network. Through their enhanced perception, Hexareth and his crew could sense the Void Collective stirring, their alien patterns beginning to actively intrude into normal space. "They're responding to our awakening." Dr. Chen's quantum form pulsed with complex harmonics. Multiple civilizations achieving quantum consciousness simultaneously, it's triggered their defensive protocols. Director Kayla, her consciousness now fully integrated with the ship's quantum matrices, processed the data streams flowing through their enhanced networks. The void patterns, they're not just consuming space. They're trying to impose a single unified state of existence, like a cosmic immune system attacking anything that doesn't match their pattern. Precisely. Dr. Rivera's presence expanded through the network. They perceive diversity itself as a threat. Multiple forms of consciousness, different approaches to existence. To them, it's chaos that must be ordered. Through the quantum network, Hexareth watched as the first tendrils of void energy began to probe their space. The response was immediate and extraordinary. Species that had been enemies days ago moved in perfect coordination, each contributing their unique approaches to quantum existence. The Meridian's crystalline technology resonated with the biological quantum computers of the Jour Collective, while the dimensional folding abilities of the Tyranny created spaces where the void couldn't penetrate. "This is what we've been preparing for," Chen explained, her form merging with the defensive patterns. "Not a traditional war, but a battle of fundamental principles. The right of existence to express itself in infinite ways versus the imposition of a single pattern of being." The void entities began to manifest more fully, their presence bending reality in ways that would have driven their unawakened minds mad. But now, enhanced and connected, the united species could see the truth. These weren't invaders from outside, but manifestations of a universe trying to regulate itself. "Now, Admiral," Rivera's voice carried across all quantum frequencies. "Your fleet's crystalline matrices, they're the key to what comes next. The Meridian ability to maintain quantum coherence across vast distances." Hexareth understood. With a thought, he initiated the transformation. The 50 ships of his fleet began to change, their crystalline structures expanding and interconnecting. What had once been individual vessels became nodes in a vast crystalline network, creating stable quantum pathways between all the awakened species. Through these pathways, consciousness flowed freely. The wisdom of ancient species merged with the innovation of younger ones. Humanity's experience guided them all, not as leaders, but as partners in a dance of existence itself. The void entities reacted violently, their patterns attempting to override and convert the quantum network. But where they sought uniformity, they found something unprecedented. A unified field of infinite diversity. Each species contributed its unique perspective, its particular approach to existence, creating a tapestry of consciousness too complex for the void to unravel. The crystalline network is holding, Kyla reported, her consciousness spanning multiple dimensions of existence. The void patterns, they're starting to resonate with our frequency instead of the other way around. This was always humanity's goal, Chen revealed, her form now indistinguishable from the quantum field itself. Not to fight the void, but to show it another way. To demonstrate that diversity strengthens existence rather than weakens it. Through the network, Xerath sensed the change beginning. The void entities, confronted with a form of unity that preserved rather than destroyed individuality, began to shift their own patterns. Their rigid uniformity started to fragment, not into chaos, but into a new kind of order, one that could accommodate difference. We're not stopping them, he realized. We're awakening them, just as humanity awakened us. Evolution, Rivera's consciousness resonated through the crystalline lattice, is not a linear path. The void entities represented one possibility. The universe trying to impose order through uniformity. We represent another, order emerging from diversity itself. The transformation spread across space as the void entities began to interact with the quantum network in new ways. What had been an impending war became something else entirely, a metamorphosis of consciousness on a cosmic scale. Director Keela, interfacing with the network's deepest levels, made a stunning discovery. The patterns, they're starting to hybridize. The void entities aren't just accepting our existence, they're learning from it, adapting, evolving. Xerath watched as his fleet, his crew, and his entire civilization became part of something far greater than an empire. The quantum crystalline network they'd helped create wasn't just a defense system. It was the foundation of a new form of existence, where consciousness could flow freely between species while maintaining its essential uniqueness. What happens now? He asked, sensing the vast changes still rippling through space. Now. Chen's form sparkled with what could only be described as joy. Now we truly begin. The universe is learning to know itself through us, through all of us. Every species, every form of consciousness, even the void entities themselves. This wasn't an end game, Admiral. It was a beginning. As the quantum network stabilized and expanded, as former enemies became partners in existence, as the void entities began their own transformation, Xerath finally understood the truth. The Meridian Empire had set out to conquer humanity's domain, only to discover that the real territory to be explored wasn't space at all. It was the infinite possibility of consciousness itself. And in that infinite space, every pattern had its place. Every form of existence its purpose, in a dance that would continue for eternity.